Right of the table at the end is the Deputy Secretary General of the EFF, Komsa Popi Mailula, and immediately next to her on her left is the Secretary General of the EFF, Komsa Marshal Dlamini. Immediately next to the President of the Economic Freedom Fighters, the Deputy President on his left, Komsa Floyd Shivambu, and of course the President and Commander-in-Chief, who will be leading the press briefing this afternoon. President.
Thank you very much. Members of the media, the EFF officials, the people of South Africa, Africa and the diaspora. The Economic Freedom Fighters held its 20th Central Command Team meeting of the Second National People's Assembly on the 25th and 26th of August 2023 in Kempton Park in the city of Ekurhuleni, where the EFF is government in Gauteng province. The CCT meeting received detailed reports about the programs and activities the organization was involved in as part of celebrating and marking its 10 years of existence as a political formation that is at the forefront of the struggle for economic freedom in our lifetime. The CCT meeting further had extensive engagements on the Road to Victory manual, which is our strategy towards the 2024 election victory. The CCT engaged in these critical matters, taking into cognizance the fact that in South Africa, state institutions are being abused in protection of one individual, a compromised head of state who is also a money launderer. We reject with contempt the South African Reserve Bank cover-up of the Palapala crimes and unlawful smuggling and usage of foreign currencies. We will take the South African Reserve Bank report on Palapala dollars to court for judicial review because there is evidently an attempt to cover up the crimes committed in Palapala, and state institutions are being abused in protection of the outgoing President of South Africa. The CCT notes that despite the superficial claim that jobs are being created in South Africa, the reality remains that more than 15 million South Africans who need jobs do not have jobs, and the sitting government does not have any believable and practical plan to end the crisis of unemployment and joblessness. Millions of young people are now at the mercy of crime and illicit drugs because of desperation. Despite many hollow commitments to end load shedding and bring about electricity stability, there is still no clear program on how to stabilize electricity generation in South Africa. The sitting government has normalized electricity blackouts in the same manner they have accepted the collapse of basic infrastructure, the prevalence of potholes in our roads, broken windows in municipal buildings, and the overall deterioration of public spaces. Instead of resolving the electricity crisis, the sitting government is going ahead with the mutilation of Eskom into 3 different companies with the sole purpose of privatizing electricity generation in favor of the greedy domestic and global capitalist interest and demands. The CCT welcomes the expansion of Brics into a bloc of progressive and forward-looking countries of the world, which must end the imperialist domination of the world by the West. The inclusion of Ethiopia, Egypt, Iran, the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia and Argentina into what is now Brics +6 is a step in the right direction because it is underpinned and defined by the need for common prosperity and not by the neo-colonial need to exploit the world's natural resources in the same way the imperialist West has been doing. We believe that in addition to the 6 new countries that will be admitted into Brics in 2024, there has to be an inclusion of Cuba, Venezuela, Palestine, and the Democratic Republic of Congo, and all progressive must support Brics as an alternative to the G7 and the NATO war alliance. As the economic emancipation movement, which amongst other principles embraces Pan-Africanism, we believe that African countries should use our proximity to our friends in Brics +6 to pursue the development of Pan-African infrastructure programs and projects. The African continent is still far behind in terms of intracontinental infrastructure and projects that can uplift the lives of our people. The African Union and all African countries should speak in one voice to pursue partnership that will result in the development of economically beneficial Pan-African infrastructures such as railway projects and electricity transmission lines that will interlink the entire continent and bring about electricity and industrial expansion for jobs and economic common prosperity. These are issues we will be raising and placing on top of the agenda during the 16th Brics Plus 6 Summit in Russia in 2024, because we'll be the government of South Africa and will represent South Africa at the Brics Plus 6 Summit in Russia. The Central Command team reflected on the role the EFF continues to play in governance in Parliament, provincial legislature and municipal councils as an organization that is in government. The EFF is pleased that we are making a meaningful impact in government, which is reflected by the service delivery initiatives we are making in municipalities such as Ekurhuleni, Johannesburg, Mogale City, eThekwini and Nelson Mandela Bay. We'll continue to demonstrate to the people of South Africa that the EFF is capable and willing government that will bring about maximum progress, stability, and quality service delivery to our people. The Central Command team reflected on the undemocratic and corrupt role municipal officials play in councils and how they effectively undermine the role of democratically elected public representatives. There are some city managers and municipal managers who think that they own councillors and they can control what the councils must do. In particular, the EFF noted that the current city manager of the city of Nelson Mandela Bay, Nokolo Nkwazi, is currently out on bail for fraud and mismanagement of municipal funds. On the 1st of June 2023, the EFF called for the immediate resignation of Nokolo Nkwazi, who has adverse funding against her, which were established by the SIU, the Hawks, the Office of Public Protector in the Eastern Cape. The EFF will introduce a motion against the city manager of Nelson Mandela Bay to call for immediate removal, and there will be no peace council sitting in Nelson Mandela Bay so long as a criminal continues to preside over the finances of the city. Nokolo Nkwazi must never think that she can buy the EFF the same way she bought all the councillors in the Nelson Mandela Bay. We are not and will never be in the pocket of Nokolo Nkwazi, the city manager of the Nelson Mandela Bay. The Central Command team once again commends and appreciates the selfless work done by all EFF leadership, structures and ground forces in the excellent execution of all programs marking the 10th anniversary of the EFF. The EFF has emphatically demonstrated to the people of South Africa, Africa and the world that we stand as a formidable political force which is ready to lead South Africa and all progressive forces in the continent into the future of common prosperity and economic emancipation. The excellence of our internal systems for mobilization and organization reflects our strength as a solid movement. We are therefore emboldened that our organization is capable, able, and well-structured and able instrument to bring about change South Africa needs today. The same way we execute mobilization and organization internally in the EFF, that's how we are going to run efficient government when we take over in 2024. The CCT received the final report of EFF public representatives who failed to organize for and pay for transport of their constituencies to attend the EFF 10th anniversary. The CCT takes serious exception on public representatives who, having had more than 5 months to organize transport for their constituencies, failed to do so. In the EFF, all our leaders organize, mobilize, educate, agitate, and also fundraise for all activities of the organization. Without these qualities, public representatives and leaders under the EFF cannot be trusted with the lives of our people and the responsibility to be at the forefront against the ruthless white monopoly establishment. The CCT has therefore resolved to recall all public representatives who failed to meet the organizational mandate an obligation in relation to the EFF 10th anniversary rally. The recall means that all councillors, members of provincial legislatures, members of parliament who fail to organize for and pay for buses for the 10th anniversary celebration must resign from positions of their deployment with immediate effect. This resolution is in line with Section 14, subsection 9 of the EFF Constitution, which says, I quote, "The CCT has the power to recall any deployee of the organization from any position of deployment, including deployment as public representatives," close quote. The CCT further resolved to remove the elected structure. The CCT further resolved to remove from elected structures all leaders who fail to organize for and pay for buses for the 10th anniversary celebrations. The removal is in line with Section 14, subsection 10 of the EFF Constitution, which says, open quote, "The CCT has the power to remove and replace incompetent members of the CCT, PCT, and RCTs," close quote. If they are loyal to the cause for economic freedom in our lifetime, the EFF members who are recalled from deployment and removed from elected structures will remain as members of the organization, but will not be eligible for deployment back to structures they were recalled from. We took this decision to recall them because we saved them from going to the National Disciplinary Committee or any disciplinary committee at whatever level, because the outcomes of any disciplinary committee at whatever level are not guaranteed. They may lead to the suspension or the expulsion. We thought this was the best political intervention because those comrades who are affected by this decision, they will remain with their membership if they so wish. Failure to comply with this directive will lead to all those members being charged and suspended with immediate effect, and the National Disciplinary Committee will take the process forward. The Central Command team had extensive deliberations and discussions on the EFF Road to Victory Manual, which is our strategic and tactical outline detailing how EFF structures will engage in the lead up to the 2024 general elections. The EFF Road to Victory Manual presents the phases of our approach to elections, which are 1. Maitlome Phase 2, Mamela Phase 3, Tselatupa Phase. Additionally, the EFF Road to Victory Manual presents an in-depth analysis of electoral politics in South Africa and analyzes the EFF's continuous qualitative and quantitative growth since its first participation in South Africa's electoral politics in 2014. What the Maitlome phase entails is that all EFF structures are converted into elections task forces, whose primary responsibility will be to organize, mobilize for, and coordinate all work in relation to elections. The CCT is therefore converted into the Central Election Task Force. Provincial command teams are converted into provincial election task forces. Regional command teams are converted into regional election task forces. Branch command teams are therefore converted into branch election task forces. And this applies to all our ward-based branches and voting district-based structures of the EFF up until the end of elections, and the constitutional structures will be reinstated immediately after the elections. Furthermore, the Maitlome phase includes the formation of dedicated elections and mobilization committees, which include Manifesto Drafting Committee, Communications Committee, Youth and Student Committee, Women and Mobilization Committee, Workers Mobilization Committee, Voter Registration Committee, and other committees that will make sure that the EFF has maximal impact in the 2024 elections. The Maitlome phase has already started and will be concluded on the 7th of September 2023 with all the necessary structures and committees established. The committees are constituted and led as follows. The Central Election Task Force will be convened by the President of the EFF, Julius Malema. The coordinator of the Central Election Task Force will be the Secretary General of the EFF, Commissar Marshal Dlamini. The Manifesto Drafting Committee will be led by the Deputy President of the EFF, Commissar Floyd Shibambo. The Cost Center and Fundraising Committee will be led by Treasurer General of the EFF, Commissar Umphile Mautwe. The Media and Communication Committee will be led by the National Spokesperson of the EFF, Commissar O.R Tambo. The Mobilization and Organizing Committee will be led by Fighter Patrick Sindani. Food Bank Committee will be led by Commissar Godrich Gadi. The Mass Voter Registration Campaign Committee will be led by Commissar Sharon Letlape. The Minority Groups Mobilization Committee will be led by Commissar Nazir Paulsen. The Youth and Student Committee will be convened by the President of the EFF Student Command, Commissar Sitle Lonzi, and coordinated by Commissar Ngobile Mthongo. The Women Mobilization Committee will be convened by the National Chairperson, Commissar Veronica Mente, and coordinated by Commissar Mandisa Makasini. The Workers' Committee will be led by Commissar Tlengiwe Mukalipi. Additionally, in line with the establishment of the Central Election Task Force, all provinces will be convened and coordinated by members of the Central Command Team, while regions will be convened by members of Provincial Command Teams and CCT members. The deployment is effective immediately as follows. The Eastern Cape will be convened by Commissar Noltando Nolchungu and coordinated by Commissar Sam Matthias. The regions of Eastern Cape will be led as follows. I asked SG that where I'm butchering the names, he must come in. The regions of the Eastern Cape will be led as follows. Alfred Nzo region, I'll start with the coordinator and end with the, I'll start with the convener and end with the coordinator. Alfred Nzo region, convener Tulisile Mlokoti and coordinator Mawande Magad. Amatola region, Mbali Dlamini and Onga Mpep. Buffalo City region, Sam Matthias and Mzianda Tlekiso. Sarah Bartman region, Polnita Marias and Lita Zibula. Christian regions, Tembile Matikizela and Lona Chocho. Nelson Mandela region, Natasha Ntangwini and Zoleka Kotoi. O.R Tambo regions, Lindile Vena and Mzukisi Fukula. Jokabe region, Zikona Njoli and Sitabucha Murwa High. The Free State will be convened by Commissar Tembi Msane and coordinated by Commissar Mandla Shkwamban. The regions of the Free State will be led as follows. Fezile Dabi, Tapelo Mogale and Amelia Chabalan. Lejuale Putswa region, Ma Peule, Coach Lipoko and Shelim Kwanas. Mangaun region, Tembi Msane and Thomas Matingwan. Thabo Mfutsanyane region, Busanku Musimanga and Mapaseka Mutau. Karib region, Anthony Matumba and Sipati Nanyani. Gauteng will be convened by Commissar Dr. Mbuyiseni Ndlozi and coordinated by Commissar Lian Mateis. The regions of Gauteng will be led as follows. Ikuruleni Lian Mateis and Dunga. Nkululeko Dunga. Johannesburg, Dr. Mbuyiseni Ndlozi and Moshe Koma. Sidibeng, Matsidiso Janet and Betuel Munyai. Swani, Mugeni Chwaku and Obakeng Ramabudu. Westland, Philip Makwala and Lindiwe Masile. KwaZulu-Natal will be convened by the Deputy President Floyd Shibambo and coordinated by Commissar Ntokozo Tonyan. The regions of KwaZulu-Natal will be led as follows. Amajuba, Matapelo Siwisa and Sibusiso Sizan. eThekwini, Ntokozo Tlhonyane and Themba Mvumbu. Herigwala, Khosi Mkhonto and Nketo Njenga. Ilembe, Thabisile Nkosi and Sakhile Zondo. Kinketshwayo, Mongezi Thwala and Sibusiso Mthinyane. Ugu, Thengiwe Chiliza and Thami Kuma. Mgugundlovu, Yazini Techana and Mzwake Mpulo. Mkhanyakude Nkululeko Ngubane and Simo Mthembu. Umzinyathi Chuma Wakeni and Sanele Nyoka, Utukela Nosipo Makamba and Mbongeni Shange. Zululand, Babalwa, Matulelwa and Tulani Ndlovu. Limpopo will be convened by Commissar Godrich Gatti and coordinated by Commissar Mabat Mukausi. The regions of Limpopo will be led as follows: Capricorn, Fikile Wortman and Jacob Lebo, Mopani, Mpusheng Lishabani and Tenyeko Mangai, Skukuni, Chilizi Maraga and Messi Kennedy, Bembe, Victor Rambau and Rasi Maepa, Waterbeck, Dr. Lawrence Matsitela and Mokwape Ramalobela. Mpumalanga will be convened by the Treasurer General Umpile Mautwe and coordinated by Commissar Renelwe Machabel. The regions of Mpumalanga will be led as follows: Botlhabela, Jackson Malachi and Surprise Kubai, Entlanzeni Lerato Tito and Sunday Mgiba, Sibande, Rulani Kibi and Nkateko Ndlovu, Kangala, Colin Sidibe and Mpo Morokola. Northwest will be convened by the Deputy Secretary General Popimai Lula and coordinated by Commissar Papigi Babuil. The regions of the Northwest will be led as follows: Bujanala, Tlengiwe Mkalipi and Justice Dabambe, Dr. Kenneth Kaunda, Letitia Eris and Mutusi Muntwedi, Dr. Ruth Sonkopoze Mumpati, Primrose Bohatsu and Lesole Malefo, Ngaka Mutiri, Matsidiso Botswe and Simon Maebane. Northern Cape will be convened by Commissar Rebecca Mtala and coordinated by Shadrach Tlaule. The regions of the Northern Cape will be led as follows: Francis Bart, Keke Kenoti and Vusi Rapoto, John Taule Khaitsewe, Tseko Mafanya and Penyo Uhenzwe, Namakwa, Z Quinana and Glenda Lepolesa, Pixley Kaisaka, Seme, Gwitsi Mudimu, Halter and Lesego Mogalagadi, Sianda, Jocolin, Botman and Paco Kautsani. Western Cape will be convened by Commissar Dr. Susan Tembekwayo and coordinated by Commissar Mbulelo Magwala. The regions of the Western Cape will be led as follows: Cape Metro, Una Tintame and Ntsikelelo Chandela, Cape Winelands, Nazir Paulsen and Dr. Wandile Kasibe. Central Karoo, which is joined with Southern Cape, will be led by Nolovuyo Tafeni and Neil Low. Overbeck, Tembile Tlas and Tozama Mangai. West Coast, Aisha Kasim and Olani Chetun. The second phase of our election approach is the Mamela phase, which is the phase where all EFF ground forces and the organization as a whole will listen to all the people of South Africa on what should be included in the People's Manifesto. The People's Manifesto will form the foundation of the EFF's campaign agenda. All the people of South Africa will be presented with an opportunity to contribute to the People's Manifesto, and we will, during the period, publicly communicate the platform through which there will be communication and contact with the EFF for submission to be made. As part of the Mamela phase, all EFF structures at all levels will hold physical consultation with different sectors of society. This will include the following: regional leaders, traditional leaders, farm workers, people in the fishing community, security guards, mine workers, former mine workers, professionals, domestic workers, farm workers, students, civil society, the creative industry, LGBTQI+ community, African diaspora's formation, the business sector, unemployed youth, social grant beneficiaries, people with disability, and construction workers. The Mamela phase will also include holding of seminars which are one-day conferences of experts and practitioners in a sector to deliberate on the following critical matters. 1. on electricity in light of the crisis of electricity confronting South Africa, on jobs in light of the crisis levels of joblessness in South Africa, on crime in light of the growing and uncontrollable levels of crime, on the creative industry in light of the continued marginalization of role players in the creative industry. The Mamela phase of our election campaign and program will culminate in the launch of the EFF Manifesto in February 2024, which will be the beginning of the last phase we call the Chelatupa phase. The Chelatupa phase begins with the launch of the People's Manifesto and will be defined by aggressive and intense campaign, which will be the center of the principle of person-to-person, person-to-person, campaign. Our campaign will be centered on speaking to our people directly because we are convinced of the superiority of our solutions and ideas. We cannot and will never be afraid of speaking to our people about their aspirations and demands because the People's Manifesto will be articulating their aspirations and demands. The EFF notes the elections results of Zimbabwe which were won by the ZANU-PF. The EFF is of the firm belief that the elections were not free and fair, but welcomes the fact that there was an absence of violence as an improvement, as elections in Zimbabwe are ordinarily characterized by violence. All ground forces of the EFF must understand and internalize the fact that at the center of our election program and campaign is of person-to-person, mutu. All ground forces are called into action and full-time dedication. We must all dedicate all weekends, starting on Fridays, strictly to engage with our people, and no internal meetings should sit when we have an obligation to interact with our communities. We are entering this election season with aim of outright victory, and that is why we are not bothered by right-wing coalitions and attempt of the ruling party to determine the contents of their exit from power. We are and remain the future of South Africa. I thank you.
Thank you very much, President. We will now take the first round of questions from members of the meeting. So I'll start here. Will be number 1, will be number 2, will be number 3, will be number 4. In that order. Number 1.
Good day, guys. It's Nkosinathi Shazi from Power FM News. I just have one question for the EFF leader, Mr. Malema. Just last week, 7 political parties in South Africa came together to form the Multi-Party Charter for South Africa, made up of the DA, IFP, Action SA, and a number of political parties. And basically, they combined just ahead of the elections to take down the ANC and its proxies. And they identified EFF as the ANC's proxy, saying that you guys cannot be trusted. You guys cannot be trusted when it comes to governing and coalition. And just to juxtapose that, the ANC itself, through its president, Cyril Ramaphosa, said the ANC will not be gunning for any partnership. They want a clean win. ANC SG Fikile Mbalula himself has slammed the EFF, saying we will not work with you guys. So my question is, Mr. Malema, as the EFF, as the organization, what are your thoughts of all these political parties in South Africa saying that they will not work with the EFF, saying that the EFF is not capable, considering that at the end of the day, you guys are the kingmakers? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Number 2.
Zineko Mhlaba from Newsroom Africa. I'd like to pose this question to Mr. Malema. How far is the party willing to go with the taking or challenging the Palapala report? And what are some of the key gaps you saw in that report that inspired the decision the CEC has taken? Second question is regarding to the elections of 2024. You've just outlined the key programs of the party which the organization will be embarking towards those elections. So what inspired the attitude of the EFF towards that? And also, obviously, every party is gunning to win elections. But what kind of South Africa do you see post these coming elections in terms of coalitions, in terms of relations, between various political parties? Those are my two questions for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 3.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Thabiso Goba from Eyewitness News. Just 2 questions on my part. In terms of the members or the public representatives who've been asked to resign, I just want to know, you mentioned that if they were taken through a disciplinary process, they could have been fired or expelled from the party. So I just want to know that, do these members still have a future within the EFF? Is there a chance for rehabilitation? I'm not familiar with everyone, but I believe, especially when you look at the MPs and the MPLs, you know, there's a lot of them who've been with the party since it was since the beginning. So I just want to know, is there a chance of rehabilitation for them, or is this it? And just my second question, unfortunately, I do have to apologize, it's out of the mandate that's being discussed here. But the DA says it wants to dissolve the Johannesburg Council. It believes that the Johannesburg Council is unstable. There's been, I think, 4 mayors since the 2021 elections. I don't know, I just want to get the EFF's thoughts on that in terms of the Johannesburg Council and how stable it is, and whether they would support this thinking by the DA that let's give it back to the voters to elect a new government again. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 4.
Good morning. Good afternoon. My name is Ntebu. I'm with the SAPC. I have 2 questions, although they've been asked but differently. Mr. Malema, you said you're going to recall around I think it's over 100 MPs, I mean public representatives, including province and nationally. How do you see the recall affecting the EFF? Are you saying it's better few than many? Don't you think that will cause a bit of ructions within the party, and where you will end up losing some key people as you prepare for these elections? And secondly, in 2019, you've got around 10% of the electoral support. And now you see yourself as the next in government. For you to be a government, you need around 50%. From 10% to around 50+%. How confident are you that you will get 50%? And are you confident that you're going to master that 50+ alone without the assistance of the other small parties, like forming a coalition with anyone? And maybe if we can chip in the extension of the expansion of the Brics Club. Do you trust some of those countries who have just joined the Brics Club? Do you think that some of them won't behave or act as molds of the colonial masters, or even of the West?
Thank you very much, President.
Thanks very much. Well, the parties that met and said they are forming a coalition, and then you say there are 7 parties. Some of those parties, I was seeing them for the first time. I've been in the space for some time now, and I will know some of these parties. So I really don't know if there are parties like that. The IFP is already having problems about that, where certain leaders of the IFP distance themselves from that coalition. Then you remain with the DA and Action SA. And the DA and Action SA is Helen Zille and Mampela Rampela kiss. That's what they did. They made them kiss each other and then killed Mampela Rampela. And that's the same direction Mashaba is taking. You listen to Mashaba speaking, you'll think it's a man who has lost his mind. He doesn't even have a sense of what is really transpiring around him because he speaks against his own conscience. So those are Oppenheimer parties. Why must we say there is a measure between DA and HNSA? Because they are Oppenheimer parties. The DA is given money by that lady of the Oppenheimer. I'm forgetting her name. Mary or something. And then the male one gives the Action SA. So they all balance them like this. And that's what you have. There is no any coalition of anything. It's the Oppenheimers playing with the minds of our people. And we must not allow that. It must be exposed for what it is. It's a kiss between DA, Steenhuisen, and Herman Mashaba. They are kissing each other. The same way Helen Zille kissed Mampela Rampela. And then Mampela Rampela died from that poisonous kiss. With poisoned thin lips of Helen. Who said we don't have a problem, really? We never said we're forming a party to work with anyone. Once you form a party, you are on your own. Because we could have joined the DA. We could have joined the IFP or anything of that sort. To choose to form a party is because you looked around and do not found anything that represent what you stand for, and therefore chose to take your own path. This is a path chosen by us. It's not chosen by the coalition of the DA. It's not chosen by the ANC. We chose this. We chose to be on our own. That's why we are not called EFF Plus or EFF Edition. We are not anything of that sort. We are independent. We shall stand elections as an independent organization. We will win elections as an independent organization. We will lose elections as an independent organization and accept the outcome with honor and acceptance that says to our people, we understand your message and will do better next time. We have no problem at all. Palapala report, really, just one sentence. I don't know why there is Galeka, Koleka, when they say public protector's office, they also mention Koleka, Galeka. But when you talk about the Reserve Bank, you don't mention Lesija Khanya. Everybody is consistent in saying Reserve Bank, but Lesija is not being mentioned. It's Lesija who's created this mess, who has converted the Reserve Bank into a protection of one man. Is Galeka because it's a woman? Her name can be called with loose like that. You can call an institution and even call her name. There's no problem there. But this side, it's a male. And because there is a male who's leading the Reserve Bank, we can't call his name. The Reserve Bank report that was advocated for by Lesija Khanyao, it's a fallacy, and its intention is to undermine that institution and protect one individual. Lesija Khanyao says, there is no formal transaction. What is formal? Because Ntabanyoni produced a receipt. There is a receipt that there was a transaction. The president himself said it, that there was a transaction. You, journalists, went to interview a man who was wearing Gucci and all of that in Dubai, who said, I came to buy the buffaloes. 3. Lesija Khanyao just decide in one day to destroy all of his good legacy in defense of one man. In defense of one man. They say there was no formal transaction. And then Koleka, this side, says, no, there was a formal transaction and all of that, everything is above board. Then the Reserve Bank says, no, these people are tax compliant, there is no problem, everything has been accounted for. What formality must we look for again? So Lesija destroyed the image of that institution Leseja destroyed his legacy. Leseja destroyed everything he stood for. It is Leseja who is at the center of destroying the good image of the Reserve Bank. And he must be called by his name. Why are you scared of Leseja? What is so special about Leseja? It's him. For career opportunism. Because he hopes to be a finance minister one day. He hopes to travel the same path that Tito Mboweni traveled. He compromises the image, the good standing of the Reserve Bank. His name, Leseja Khanao, must go into history as a man who destroyed one of the good institutions of our country. And Reserve Bank. Leseja's name is not being called. I've been observing this. That when it comes to the public protector, Koleka's name is called. When it comes to SARS, SARS has cleared. That Kisveter's name is not being called. When it comes to the Reserve Bank, Leseja's name is not being called. Males are being treated differently from females-led institutions. We are not going to be part of that patriarchal arrangement. Count us out of that. My brother, the future in the EFF is not a position. Why, when you're being removed from a position, you say, I just said in the statement, they remain members of the EFF and continue to contribute. That's your future. That's my future. The future is not position. So we remove people from positions. You say, do they have future? What are you saying? We did not expel them. They are members of the EFF. In the EFF, we are not going to allow opportunism of the highest order. So please, you can be guaranteed, if they want to remain in the EFF, they are more, that's why we didn't take them to DC. The DC may well decide not to find them guilty. The DC might find them guilty and expel them or suspend them. And that will destroy their future in the EFF. In the protection of their future, we said, let's take a political decision, which is allowed by the constitution of the EFF, to recall. Because those positions they hold are the EFF positions. You are mandated by the EFF. At any time, the EFF can recall you, including me. So I don't understand what is this future. If the future is positions, then I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested. Well, and removing them from positions and having them remain in the organization is part of the rehabilitation. It's part of saying to them, you still need to learn more and have an appreciation. Maybe we prematurely promoted you into position of responsibility and you are not ready. Let's prepare you and then we'll consider you going forward. How can a man or a woman who couldn't get one bus disrupt my election campaign? One. How can that person disrupt the election campaign? He has demonstrated he's got no capacity to do anything. We are removing SG 210 public representatives. And we do so unashamedly. Out of 1,200. 1,200 public representatives, we are removing 210. We remain with 990 good members of the EFF, the servant of the people, who are ready to respond to the call at any time. Don't tell me about lazy deadwoods. I have no time for deadwoods. I have no time for staff riders who have no capacity. Whether they've been with us for too long, it means nothing if you can't perform the simplest task. You know, one of you is very sympathetic that maybe the MPs, we know them, we may not know the others. There is an MP who until this morning was still lying that she paid for a bus. The SG went and said, okay, let me sit down and understand this. Went through with her, only to find that this MP submitted a quotation and thought that we're fools, will confuse the quotation for an invoice. And the quotation is dated 25 July. You can see this MP has never done anything for 5 months. On the eve of the rally, realizes, hey, there's a problem coming here. She then gets a quotation. And then today, this morning, she gives us a quotation as a proof of payment. You want to serve with such people. These are the people you want to serve with. Better few, but better. Not fraud. Fraud. Until this morning, a fraud was still trying to defraud the organization. And not coming clean and open and apologize and say, no, we'll do what the organization is asking us to do. There's no DA which is going to dissolve any Johannesburg here. Eh? There's no DA that will dissolve. If Stonehaven's life is dissolved, he must not think that that's going to happen in Johannesburg. It's not going to happen, that one. Johannesburg is stable. Johannesburg has got a mayor, and the MMCs are up to task. A lot of those MMCs are up to task. They are trying their level best with limited resources and difficulties that we're confronted with in Johannesburg. You know, you comrades of the media, you're not covering the job of those comrades. You're not showing what those comrades are doing good. All of a sudden, there is a media blackout on MMCs. Bumpo palatse nerba tsiba leba parade apara okare ke Queen Elizabeth anana or mogri beauty contest. Lemo covered her. Mara, our comrades are not being covered because they are living amongst our people. Look at the MMC of Public Safety and what it's doing in Johannesburg. And tell me if there's anyone in the history of that department who can ever match that MMC. Look at what our MMC of Health is doing in Johannesburg and compare. Some of you for sure you even know for the first time that there's actually MMC of Health in Johannesburg through our MMC. But that is not being covered by the media because it's a good governance of the EFF. Now the DA says we can't work with the EFF. The ANC says we can't work with the EFF and all of that. No one is asking them a question. Where did the EFF do wrong? Where? We are now in government. Where did the EFF do wrong? Show us. Snooki Zikalala says the EFF is not a law-abiding organization. You don't ask him a question, why are they still a registered political party if they are not a law-abiding organization? Because law-abiding means compliance to the Constitution. If you don't comply with the Constitution, you will not be registered as a political party. You take that as a gospel truth and walk away. Kandi's got personal reasons behind what he's saying. Why? The MMC of Finance in Ikuruleni is engaged in Siatrima, a program where they switch off illegal connection by big business and industries in Ikuruleni. And then to enhance revenue for that municipality, close for those businesses that are not paying their electricity bills. Where are you to cover that? But if it was a white mayor, that one of Tswan, what is his name? Brics. If it was Brics trimming, you are going to be following him because he's a white man. A black government that is delivering to its people. Look at waste collection in Ikuruleni has improved to a point where the DA complained that when we're in government, we're sabotaged, the trucks were not unleashed. Look, now their trucks are unleashed into communities to go and deal with waste management. The potholes in Mogale City are being patched. You went to cover Cyril Ramaphosa patching a gravel road. It's patching a pothole. But here is an MMC in Mogale City who's patching real potholes and ensuring that there is rehabilitation of the roads in Mogale. No, that is not being covered. The EFF can't be trusted. What did they do? The only thing they are scared of, both the ANC and the DA, is that the EFF will do what they said they will do if you give them an opportunity. Go and check us. We are open for scrutiny. Go and check us everywhere. Everywhere. Don't only check us. Report our work. Report the good we are doing for our people. Report it. In eThekwini, we got the ANC to consider and accept the insourcing of security guards and the cleaners. Now, it's an EFF policy. We are navigating it even when we don't have the majority, to make sure that it becomes the resolution of councils. What is the problem with the EFF? The problem with the EFF is that it will do what it said it will do. And that's why the ANC Nikuruleni was caught screaming and kicking, saying to the ANC leadership, let's get out of this relationship. We don't want this. The ANC asked why. They said they are suffocating us. They are leading a debate and implementation of community development and service delivery. In Ikuruleni, there is no one who can, that person who complains like that is a spoiled brat. There's no one who can say, I reported a sewer blockage and it is now more than 24 hours without a resolution. When a sewer blockage gets reported that there is a sewer running, the sewer is blocked and all of that, we unleash the municipal workers. If the municipal workers are reluctant to go, branches and leaders of the EFF go themselves to go and unblock that sewer. We do it ourselves, without government. We don't say, no, the procedure, we put in the claim. But sewer muskin to chipila kota. But let's go and do it. The deputy chairperson of the EFF in Gauteng is the best at leading that. He was now in Atteridgeville. No one has covered that. You won't cover it. You are waiting for him to do wrong. All of that good he's doing, you will never talk about it. Comrades, you know, any formation that creates a multipolar society in which the imperialist forces are isolated, as an anti-imperialist movement, we welcome that. Every country that participates in any multilateral bodies always look after its interest. They first look after their interest before they can look after the interest of other members. So we're not naive about the relationship of these other countries with America and the NATO war alliance. We are quite aware. But we are confident that the leadership, which is at the center of Brics, particularly China and Russia, and to a particular extent, Brazil, we know that they will not allow the nonsense to happen, as it were, at that level. So that's where our confidence comes from. So, and that's why the argument in the EFF is that, in our statement, is that, guys, the leaders of Africa, let's use our participation in BRICS, let's use our participation to ensure that there is an infrastructural development in Africa, not only in South Africa. Let's use this to connect the continent. Let's use this for more investment in the continent so that by the time the imperialist forces open their eyes, we are a fully developed continent. Because South Africa developed alone in this continent will not be helpful. The last point, former TG, is that the question is, you got 10%. How are you going to get 50%? Chamisa formed CCC. Now, for the first time it contests elections. Now, it got 44%. I hope that answers your question. It doesn't have to be like, because in the previous election you got 10, you can't get 50. Chamisa, CCC, in the previous elections got 0. In these elections got 44. So we are even better than Chamisa's CCC. We regret 10. Renyaga fella foot. Then we're done. We're not starting at 0 like Chamisa did with CCC. We're starting at 10. And we're going forward. We are the only organization that has never lost votes since 2014. Only organization that is not going to lose votes even now. Thanks.
We'll do a last round, President.
Yeah.
Can I see hand? 1, power again. 2, and that will be our last round. 3.
Kosnati Shazi again from Power FM News. For the first time, my question won't be directed to Mr. Malema.
Yeah.
It will be directed to Mr. Floyd Shivambu. Mr. Deputy President, my question for you is, I just wanted to find out, is there life for the EFF after Malema? And this question is not an indictment to the current leader of the EFF. Mr. Malema is often a very good leader. You know, he's very persuasive and he's done his duty as a leader to grow the party. But my question is, you know, you're often touted as the next CIC in waiting. You're touted as the brains of the organization. And you're heading into the third elections, and growth is vital for the party to remain strong. But my question is, will the EFF be able to survive without Malema at the helm? And when will we see, and like I said, this is not an indictment, when will we see the rest of the leadership rise up and take the organization forward? Because even with the successful rally that you guys hosted, the thing that remains in people's minds is Malema. It's always Malema and not the organization. So my question, Mr. Floyd Shivambu, do you see the EFF surviving without Malema in the long run? Thank you very much.
Hi, Tabisogo again from Eyewitness News. So just a matter of clarity for me, that's all. In the tweet that the EFF released, or the statement, I think there was over 400, about 430 of the public representatives who didn't get transport, but I believe the president just said that only 210 have been recalled. So I just want to, if you can just clarify that discrepancy. Thank you.
I think it was in Tambo first. Is that? And then you? Okay, good.
Okay, Ntewa again with the SAPC. Mr. Malema, you spoke about the institutions, for instance, referring to SAP and the Public Protector's Office. I'm always interested in knowing from politicians in South Africa, what kind of public protector would you prefer to be in office? I mean, I'm saying this against the backdrop of what some people have observed, especially with the few public protectors that we had in the past, starting from Advocate Tulima Donsela, who at some point was criticized by all in sundry, only because there was a finding against a president of the ANC. And then came in Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane. Again, there is a finding that he has against the president of the ANC. And Kolega Kalega Advocate made a finding in support of the president or in favor of the president of the ANC, and recently, or for some reason, has become a darling. So the question is, what makeup of a public protector would you prefer as the EFF? And I didn't think about the Chamisa and the EFF. I know you're a political hack, you should know that. I mean, in mathematics, it's only where we have therefore, but in politics, therefore, there is nothing like 2 plus 2, it's 4. 3 plus 1 is 4. Thank you, sir.
I know I'm covered, but
Okay. Thank you,
Do you know the EFF is going to outlive all of us? Even now, oh. Look, the economic freedom fighters is going to outlive all of us. It has gained a life of its own even now. So even what you are saying, the president is leading excellently the organization and is doing extremely very well in a very decisive, focused, an inspirational, persuasive way. But the organization is growing like. You know, this Ipsos research company generated a report which they presented to all of us to illustrate that when we participated in the first elections, the individual leaders of the EFF, because the organization was still young, were much more popular than the organization. But it is now a different story. The organization has gained a life of its own. Look, in the recent past, this past week, in the University of South Africa, 43,000 students, where we are not involved, none of us here, in the campaigns of the Student Representative Council elections. And 43,000 people voted for the EFF student commands without our participation. So this organization is far, far, far much bigger than all of us as individuals. And that is the organization which we founded 10 years ago, that it's an economic emancipation movement that is not just about its individual leaders. It's not a private organization. It's an organization of the people. It's an organization which we are going to bequeath to future generations to emancipate ourselves from the neo-colonial dominance of the West. And that is what this organization is all about. So if there's one thing which we are rest assured and we confidently know, is that this EFF is going to outlive all of us. So that is, I mean, it's finding expression in other parts of the African continent. In Namibia, we've got the economic freedom fighters, which ascribes to our leadership here in South Africa. They've got members of parliament in Namibia. We have never been to Namibia to campaign for the EFF. So the EFF is an idea which is long overdue, and it's relevant for the lives of our people. And one thing for sure, and which we are 100% convinced and we know, is that it is going to outlive all of us in terms of what happens. So that is the organization that will, it's an instrument in the hands of our people. It's a fighting weapon that will inspire many generations to come to fight for economic emancipation. Thank you very much, President.
No, thank you very much. You see, the problem is that mani hleli nje linqokola wena uthatha izinto zakunqokola uziletha nqokola nje uthi umalema niyanqokola wena nabangani bakho niyanqokola, and then you want to make us part of that, because if you use science, the research of Ipsos said the EFF is now more popular than Malema. It's in the research. So, Mara, you know, Rinchi Mola Stupu, Mola 15, go Alexander, we go music. I don't want to Malem. Then Unana, no, that is science. It's done. This is what people are saying. Arshmishin science, Lemo Power FM, Reverend science. 400 to 200 because the report was released, names were released, and then people were given an opportunity to argue their case. And I said to you now, there was a person just this morning who came to argue her case. If it was indeed proven beyond a reasonable doubt that this person is right, we wouldn't be sitting with 210. it would have been 209 because she must be removed from the list. So we announced the names. You know, one of the things we found is that some of the councillors in the Eastern Cape, they have 3 months without being paid because municipalities don't have money and salaries are not paid. So such people get removed. That you can't expect such a person without their own income to now go and look for buses for the EFF. They are concentrated on trying to resolve their immediate issues. There's quite a number of such cases and others where there were administrative discrepancies by administrators, because now it is the SG who's directly interface with people to want to hear what is your story, if you have a story to tell. And then you make your case and then a decision is made to that effect. So that's where the number then got reduced from 400 to 210. We are likely to even have less than that, because as people are going to be receiving letters and being told you have to resign. I mean, there was a guy called Chico, is it Chico Mkwanas? This one was saying to me, Mkwanazi didn't pay a bus. And I kept on saying that the whole meeting at CCT. This morning, the SG comes and says, no, Mkwanazi paid a bus and paid it in April. He produced a proof here. The confusion was that they got a collective quotation of 57,000. And then he paid his portion in the 57, his bus was 12,000. So they looked at the POP of 12,000 vis-a-vis the quotation of 50,000 and said, no, this doesn't make sense. So he came and said, no, look at this. This is us. And then each one of us in this 57 pays this much, and this is my portion. Fortunately, the bus company, we used it. Then we're able to communicate with the bus company, and they said, no, that's authentic, we know that, and all of that. Then his name goes off. That's how I'm convinced this morning, because the thing with our people is that the more serious you become, they too start coming out, hey, our demand is just talking. Let me send my stuff. So it's not the lesser number we get, the more happier we are. We don't want this. We don't want it. That's why we kept on making all types of noises for these comrades to comply. So we don't rejoice in this. But there has to be mandate and accountability. We want a public protector that will just comply with the public protector's laws and not be involved in politics. There were public protectors, that's why you are starting before, starting with Tulima Donse. There were public protectors before. There was never any problem of that sort and anything of that. So Tulima Donse made her reports. Her reports were challenged in courts, and she won. And then that was it. We want a public protector that will take decisions, and those decisions must still be challenged. Whether she wins or she doesn't win, there is a recourse. But stick to the rules. Don't be political as a public protector. From where I'm sitting, in all of those interviews, there's no single one who qualifies. By just listening to all those interviews, where our TG performed very well in trying to interrogate those people in the best interest of our country, nothing came out. The ANC tried. Even wabacho mungwari public protector upatela sasa beneficiaries. I don't know if the ANC did it deliberately in an attempt to make Koleka shine, but she could not shine with the understanding and interpretation of the law. She couldn't. For a young person who should, because of age, do not have a history of struggle credentials and anything of that sort, if you want to engage in that space, it is your intellectual understanding of the law which must make you look smart, and everybody should say, this is the one. So no one, no, if they get anyone, it will be out of Oppenheimer's instruction that this is the one we're taking. But none of those people there can get a 2/3 majority. I can tell you now. If we were to follow the line of questioning of the DA, of the EFF, of the opposition parties, none of those guys qualify to get a 2/3 majority. Look, the DA goes into its conference and declares us enemy number one. They go into their coalition things to the moon. On their way to the moon, they declare us enemy number one. When you declare people enemy number one, it means you are in war with them. The DA has declared war against the EFF. And in this Central Command team, we have accepted the invitation to war by the DA. We're not scared of the DA. We're not scared of Action SA. We're not scared of the Oppenheimers. We're not scared of anyone who has invited us to the war. We're here today to accept the war and to accept that we're enemy number one of the white monopoly capital. And we will not be defeated. The DA will never defeat us. The ANC will never defeat us. So the DA should know that the invitation to war has been accepted. We have never declared war against anyone. We were doing politics and saw everybody as a political opponent rather than an enemy. But since we are an enemy now, let's go to the battlefield. 2024 will separate boys from men, girls from women, because the DA thinks that it can defeat the EFF. The white capital has invited you, the ground forces of the EFF, to war. It's up to you to decide if you want to be defeated or not. As the ground forces of the EFF, we have a responsibility to defend the movement on the ground. And you do that by winning votes. Let's defeat the DA and defeat the handlers of the DA. We must make sure that whatever happens, the numbers of the ANC and the EFF combined go beyond 55%, so that this DA can never constitute government without the EFF, and the ANC can never constitute government without the EFF. Someone said, we are the kingmakers. We are not the kingmakers. We are the king. Thank you.
Thank you, President. And thank you, officials. That includes our EFF media briefing for today. Members of the media, we have lunch for you. Just sit at your direct. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.